Howdy, this is the Views from the Shop podcast. I'm your host, your one and only host, Tim Miller, and today it is Thursday, June 18th, 2026, and I wish you a very, very, very happy Clean Your Aquarium Day. On today's show, it is Ohio State assistant coach Brian Walsh joining the Views from the Shop podcast on the 2026 Summer Guest Series. If you missed the first couple episodes, it was head coach Jake Diebler who joined, and then former player and now current Barstool personality Mark Titus on the show as well. Today is Brian Walsh. I'm telling you folks, you may see, just because it's an assistant coach, this could be one to skip. The next two episodes are going to be assistant coaches, and they are, it's going to be a peek behind the curtain. It's going to be a behind-the-scenes look. A lot of really, really good content coming from Coach Walsh and Coach Simon. So make sure you subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Please like the video. If you're watching on YouTube, comment your thoughts below as well, because that helps a bunch. And make sure you're subscribed, again, wherever you get your podcast, so you do not miss an episode. I've got some great guests, some great content coming for you this summer. So hope that you'll follow me along throughout the Summer Guest Series. Today, it is Coach Walsh joining. We're going to talk about things that you may know, or things that you may know exist but don't have definitions for, like what is the difference between a visit, an official visit, and an unofficial visit, and what game changed the trajectory of the season for Ohio State this year. Talk to me about the recruitment battle of Anthony Thompson, both when you were at Indiana, then when you were at Ohio State, and then a whole lot more that we'll talk about, including some playing days and a very unique story at the end of the show with Coach Walsh on that. So, appreciate you being here today. Just so you know, I am out on vacation. Hopefully, Lord willing, I have made it to my destination with my wife as of Wednesday. It's Thursday now that you're hearing this. And then it should be Monday or Tuesday next week when you get the show from Coach Simons. Make sure you subscribe. viewsfromtheshoppodcast.substack.com. Subscribe there for completely free to get access to news, notes, articles, things like that. When it happens, you can join the Insider subscriber chat as well if you want insider intel. With that said, let's get into the conversation with assistant coach Brian Walsh here on the 2026 Summer Guest Series. Thanks so much for being here today. Coach Brian Walsh joins the Views from the Shop podcast on the 2026 Summer Guest Series. Coach Walsh, it is your second appearance here on the show, so it wasn't horrible enough the first time for you to join a second time. Again, like we did this with Mark Titus, it's important to do some really investigative journalism, I feel, whenever having guests on. So I did some research, like a good podcaster should, and I found, I actually complained about this a lot. Ohio State 2 years ago, the year before you came to Ohio State, the Buckeyes were 352nd in the nation in personal fouls per game. Not good. Really bad foul rates, things like that. Then last year, you join, and Ohio State's personal fouls per game goes to 174th in the nation. Is this because you fouled only one time in your career as a college basketball player? Did you bring some of that to Ohio State?
I would love to take credit for that, but it's funny you say that. That was one of the main things that we talked about when I first got here in May, was just some of the marginal things, especially the foul rate. Obviously was super high. That was one thing as we went into the off season and got into the summer and the fall. One point of emphasis for us was that situational, fouling, whether it's early in the clock, whether it's late in the clock, or just in general, an unnecessary foul. We spent a lot of time with our guys talking about it, showing it, and it was definitely one area that Coach Diebler and our staff definitely spent time trying to improve.
So tell the listeners, what specifically did you guys do in order to improve on this? Because obviously a lot of it, I'm sure, is a little bit of roster compensation. You had some turnover on the roster, but how did you focus on that in a day-to-day, game-by-game basis in terms of reducing fouls?
Yeah, I think it's every day in practice. You coach it, you ref it, and a lot of it is discipline and positioning. We always talk about positioning is your help. So if you're in better position, you're going to foul less. If because then you're going to not be in a catch-up situation where you may grab and hold. And then just the end of shot clock, whether it's, a drive where, I felt like we did a really good job of meeting the guy at the rim, which what we call, a Mozgov, because coming over and going straight up around the rim, around the charge circle, and then just showing your hands. A lot of times in college basketball when guys drive, there's a bad habit of grabbing and trying to go for the ball. But, there's large human beings down there. So if we just tell them, show your hands and let the big guy come over. And if everyone's doing their job, it should be tough to get the ball on the rim and to convert.
All right, Coach. So one thing that's very easy to know if you compare to the football side is you'll have your assistant coaches, but they are offensive coordinator or defensive line coach or whatever the case may be. Whereas in basketball, you've got few assistant coaches, and they're all assistant coaches. So this is a question actually from an insider subscriber, Will. If you would like to ask questions to guests on the Views from the Shop podcast, go join the insider subscriber chat, viewsfromtheshoppodcast.substack.com. Linked in the description. So, Coach, tell fans, what's your role look like at Ohio State as assistant coach? What are you responsible for, day-to-day game planning, things like that?
Yeah, there's a lot of different things, but specifically, let's talk basketball first. I'll assist Coach Jamal Walker with the defense. So I'll help him and just be an extra set of eyes, watching that side of the ball. And as we prep for games, just making sure we're crossing our T's and dotting our I's and seeing everything that we need to see as far as a preparation standpoint of what's going to be coming from the opposing team. So there's that. I'm in charge of opponent personnel. So for instance, whether we're playing the team up north or someone in the league, 2 days before, I'll kind of go through the top 9 players and go over tendencies and where they like to get their shots and who will be guarding who in matchups. So if you see me kind of in the games, getting guys pointing, that's one of the things as well in game that I'm doing. And then, outside of, the basketball games, there's obviously the practice. I'm helping with the guards and doing a lot of things hands-on, player development, which is a 365-day development plan that Coach Diebler runs. And then there's obviously the recruiting and all that goes into it. So those would probably be like my 4 biggest buckets when it comes to my job, and then kind of everything else in between, whatever is needed. Like to think that I can get the job done.
So let's talk about recruiting, for example. This is something that fans just want more and more access to. And you were pretty integral in a really, really big win in the class of 2026 with Ohio State, earning the services of 5-star Anthony Thompson. Take me through your relationship with Anthony kind of from the start. Like, do you remember the first time you saw him? Obviously, there's a relationship there in Indiana. Just kind of take me through, give us a peek behind the curtain there.
Yeah. So, Anthony Thompson, it's funny because he was sending out tape, I want to say as a 9th grader. Now, as assistant coaches, you get a ton of emails, right? And it's very easy to kind of just neglect them and delete them, whatever. And I try to go through them just a real quick 30-second kind of take. And he was sending out emails his 9th grade year, whether it was Twitter or Instagram, whatever. And I clicked on it. And I was like, man, who is this long, kind of skilled, baby-looking kid? He's kind of got some potential to him. So he first got on, my radar at Indiana as a 9th grader. And then we just kind of always stayed in touch. He played for Indiana Elite, which I was very familiar with at my previous stop. And, spent a lot of time recruiting him whenever I was at Indiana. So I kind of knew the pieces around him. I knew the family, knew his high school, his prep school, AAU trainers. So I was pretty insulated as I got here in May, where I could assist. I know Coach Walker and Deebs and really our whole staff, went after him, but was pretty well versed whenever I got here in terms of Anthony.
So take me through when you get to Ohio State. I mean, I'm sure there are other players too, and there's still players who you're recruiting on the high school side, and you go from Indiana to Ohio State, and your messaging probably has to change a little bit, and you go from, hey, I want you to join Indiana, you're going to be great here, to, hey, I want you to join Ohio State, you're going to be great here. How did that transition go for you? Like, did you have to change messaging? What does that all look like?
Yeah, that's a good question. So luckily for myself, a lot of the heavy lifting was done when I got here. The staff last year did a phenomenal job of putting that team together. So that was done. But as far as the recruiting went, staying in the league, coming across the border, there geographically wasn't much change. And like this right here, this is even a bigger logo than where I'm coming from. Now people can say that the other place is a basketball school, but like the draw and the attention and the brand, it didn't change at all. So everyone that I was recruiting, now you have to figure out Coach Diebler and his system and style of play and what he likes. That's first and foremost. But those relationships kind of just, formed and moved from there to here. And it was actually a pretty smooth process.
Can you take me through, the Anthony Thompson recruitment was Ohio State, Indiana. From an outsider's perspective, I think most people knew that those were the two programs involved. So can you take me through those final days? A date has been set. When do you actually get the commitment communicated to you? Like, how does that work?
Well, I got to keep a little bit of that of information, under wraps. But, as you go into those final weeks and you're having conversations daily, hourly with kind of everyone around the situation, you typically maybe know without knowing, if that makes sense. Some of these guys will not tell you until they decide. And then some other recruitments, you'll kind of get tipped off a day or so before. But coming down the home stretch of that recruitment, I got to give unbelievable credit to Coach Diebler and Jamal and just our entire staff with, how we approached that one and just the relentless attack that we were all on to get him to be here, a part of Ohio State. But I like to say with a wink that we knew a little bit early, but it was still, one of those recruitments where it goes down to the wire, and there's going to be a lot of conversations that you got to have and got to be buttoned up to get his services.
That one was very, very quiet, so credit to everyone involved. I remember speaking to someone the morning of his commitment, and I said, come on, man, like you got to tell me. Just tell me. What am I going to do? And the answer was always, it's going to be Indiana or Ohio State. And I said, come on, like, give me something. I think he's going to play in the Big Ten. That's all I got. So that one was very, very quiet, but you end up winning that one. So I think of in the office world, in the sales world, especially in the what feels like multi-level marketing world, for example, like you have the gong, or like you guys get pumped up and you get a pump up song at 7:30 before you go knock some doors. So when Anthony commits and like the tweets are out that Anthony's going to Ohio State, have you guys ever considered like maybe a gong or something to bang when you guys win a recruitment battle? Is that something that's ever come up in a meeting?
No, I don't think anything like that. I think we got together as a staff and celebrated that one, but nothing like a gong or anything. Maybe like a boom tweet. I think that's something that is kind of something that I've learned here that gets going when you get a commitment. But no, we certainly we celebrated that one because it was a long recruitment, and you go a lot of places, you spend a lot of money just trying to get to those places, and you pour a ton of resources into a young man like him, and we're just so excited to have him here and develop him.
Yeah, no, I like to imagine you guys maybe like a chest bump or some kind of secret handshake or something like that. But I guess it's just all business for.
No, we had some fun. We this staff likes to have a good time, and a bunch of good guys in here. So we definitely enjoyed that news and celebrated accordingly.
So I have one more question on recruiting, which is probably a question I should ask Coach Diebler when he was on the show, but alas, here we are. Take me through, how does an assistant coach get labeled the primary? How does that work? Is it territorial? Is it position-based? How does that work?
No, I don't think it's any of that. I think, it's probably going to be just a relationship. For instance, another recruit, hey, I may have the primary relationship with the guy that's around the kid. So I've worked with him before, he helped me get a different kid. And then that just kind of becomes, the primary or the point man. But, something that we do here that I really love is we collaborate a lot with our staff from top to bottom. So there really is no like my recruit, this recruit, that recruit. It's kind of like our recruit. And I think that's super important because it gives the chance for the recruit and his family to kind of get to know all of us in the office, not just myself and the head coach. Like we'll all, reach out to these guys and make sure that, they're feeling the love from myself to Coach Simons to everybody on down the line. So that's something that I really enjoy here.
So let's talk about basketball at this point. Finally. So I know that you leave Indiana, you go to Ohio State, and I'm sure you looked at the schedule and you said, "Oh, when are we gonna play Indiana?" And you saw that game; it was going to be senior day. And I think it may be common to say like, "I left this program, so I hate this program." And in reality, it's probably not that true. There's a lot of turnover both in roster and in coaching staffs, obviously with your move. But there's also some behind-the-scenes staffers who stay there, and I'm sure there's some familiar faces. But take me through, how did you feel personally with that connection to Indiana and what ended up being a blowout game? Bruce Thornton breaks the scoring record in the game. What was that game like? What was that experience like for you personally?
Yeah, that was a special game for a lot of reasons. I would say first and foremost, we were fighting for our NCAA lives, and Bruce Thornton was trying to, break a record that has stood for a long time. So I think those were the first two that come to mind as that game approached. I'd be lying to you if I didn't maybe have that game circled. Just coming from there, just being a competitor, you obviously want to, beat that team. But like you said, I spent 8 years there, and I have tremendous respect and relationships from everybody in that program, from Scott Dolson, AD, all the way down. So there's still a lot of faces that I know and have great relationships with. So certainly on game day, whoever it is, like we're trying to beat that opponent and win that game. But with all the things that kind of surrounded that game, with how big the game was, the time of the year, it being senior night, Bruce Thornton going for the record, it was a really special day. So that was an awesome win.
Take me through Bruce Thornton, ball in his hands, time's winding down the first half. Now, Jake Diebler came on the show and said that he was barking at Bruce to go get a 2-for-1 opportunity. As he's crossing half court, first of all, did you know that a 3 could break the record?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, we get stat sheets, every 4 minutes, the media timeouts. Now, we're not obviously broadcasting that to the guys, but being a student of the game and kind of knowing situational awareness of what's going on, like you're looking kind of at that a little bit. So, he had it going, and he obviously had a great game, and man, he took that shot with unbelievable confidence, and that was a great way to do it.
Yeah, so Coach Diebler said he didn't know that shot could have broken the record. He kind of, it got pretty loud in there, so you find out that something must have happened. So for you knowing, I mean, at what point, as he's crossing half court, did you think to yourself, I think he might pull here? Or what did you see kind of go on as that play developed?
You don't, in the moment, you just want a good possession. Like, let's get a good shot. I think maybe everyone else in the building maybe knew that shot was going to do it just when he released it, just kind of the buildup of the shot. But when he made that move, I've seen him make that move 100 times in practice on his own with an empty gym. For me, any shot is a good shot with Bruce, because if you kind of look at his efficiency and his percentages, like all over the floor, behind the 3, inside the 3, by the rim, at the free throw line, like that's the confidence that we had in him. And we felt good with him shooting it kind of whenever. And he worked really, really hard to earn that. And man, what a special shot for him and his family and for our team.
So then we had the kind of just weird. Like, it's weird because he makes a shot. And at that point, we all probably remember you guys were not in an opportunity where you could say, we're going to the NCAA tournament. Now, with the win, after the game, the CBS March Madness theme song gets played. I think everyone kind of knew what direction the program was going in, at least after that win. But before that, I mean, you've got a nice lead going into halftime, but you got 20 minutes left. So what was it like kind of celebrating, and then Bruce goes out and he gets celebrated, and then you got to go back in, you got to lock in and play a second half. What was that all like?
Yeah, I think Coach Diebler did a great job handling that. And David Egelhoff, our operations, we had kind of like contingent plans of first half, second half, close game, not close game, winning, losing. So before the game, we had a bunch of situational awarenesses of, how we're going to kind of do this. Now, obviously, the way it played out was different, right, than what we kind of had prepped. But we knew that was a big moment for Bruce. But Bruce said it, I think, in the post game, like there was one goal in his mind, and that was to win so that he can make the NCAA tournament. So he got the ball. He posed for some pictures, and when he went back to the locker room, Coach did a great job of kind of shifting that energy kind of into the second half. And same with Bruce. Bruce is a pro's pro, and he knew that the task at hand was to win the game, not get the scoring record. That was kind of a byproduct of the game. So it was a really smooth process coming into halftime. Obviously, we played well, and again, just a really good team effort that day, and a great individual effort by Bruce.
Yeah, so it's interesting. You said you guys made contingency plans depending on winning, losing, blowout, first half, second half. Bruce Thornton makes a shot with 18 minutes left to go in the second half, and you're down by 7. What happens? Do you remember?
I don't remember, but
okay.
there was a plan in place. Like I said, David is, the best ops in the country, and he kind of thinks things that we don't. And he kind of had everything prepped from stoppage of the game to you name it. It was kind of teed up, so everyone was on the same page. So I have no idea what that was, but I loved how it played out.
Yeah, I mean, fans should be chomping at the bit. This is the second show in a row. Mark Titus also mentioned David Egelhoff. I have said before, I've asked David to join the show. More than a nice guy, politely has declined. That's fine. But again, I mean, he's clearly got some stories to tell. So we'll try to get him at some point. Let's do some insider subscriber questions now. This one comes from Dylan. He says, I don't know the best way to phrase this, but us fans have heard a lot about Coach Walsh's relationship building when it comes to recruiting. I'd like him to talk about how he does so well with it. So I guess this is your opportunity to brag and talk about why you're such a strong recruiter.
Well, I think it's where you're at, first off, right? I'm at Ohio State. I have a lot to sell. It's an unbelievable program, a rich tradition. I have a great young head coach where we're taking this, we're taking this thing in a good trajectory right now. And there's a lot of good things to sell. I think there's really no way to skip steps. Now, what I mean by that is you got to work. Recruiting is an everyday thing. And if you're not recruiting every day, then you're getting behind because someone else is recruiting every day. And I think just being genuine and being yourself, is the way to do it. But you have to spend time at it, and you have to, make sure that you're calling the right type of people. And it could be, a young man could have 5 or 6 or 7 people helping him with the situation. And if you're not touching base with every single person in that camp, there's going to be a crack. And if there's a crack, you're not going to have it tight. And you want to have that thing tight. You want to have all the information that you can get. But there really is just no shortcut to picking up the phone or texting or just carving out time, to spend time having genuine conversations. It's not always just about basketball, about other things. But, I've been fortunate. I learned from some really good recruiters when I was a young player and as a young coach. And you kind of take some of the things that they like to do and some things that you don't like they do, and you kind of make it your own. But there's really no substitute for hard work and just being a genuine person. And I try to just build really good relationships, and that has worked out for me so far.
So you mentioned, you got to be on top of this. You got to have touch points daily. I'm sure maybe not with the same recruit, but kind of like you said, with everyone involved. So I don't know, Ohio State beats Appalachian State this year. Like, do you get done with the game, you get done with your meetings, whatever the case may be, and you're like, well, let me go text these 5 guys. Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you're constantly selling, and in season it may dip just a little bit just because your responsibilities is the opponent. But again, it's kind of an everyday thing. And I think in that moment, in those games, you're just wanting the recruit and his family to watch. Mm-hmm. Because I'm talking a lot about the style of play, how we may play through a certain play, or, hey, watch for this play. I could see you doing this. And you want them to see the style of play. You want them to see that specific play or see that style of play that you're talking about, because a lot of it can be words, right? But you want words to kind of match the product that you're selling. So it may just be like, hey man, did you see, Junie went for 25? Did you see how he was getting shots? Something like that. But yeah, I'm typically trying to always have touch points with our recruits.
Do you ever have, now you have like a real relationship with a prospect. Have you ever had a prospect just like ghost you? Like you text them 5 times and they're not responding? Does that ever happen?
Yeah, I think there's some good responders and there's some bad responders. You got to know who you're recruiting. I can remember being recruited back in the day. I wasn't a huge phone guy. So like that's our job to know these recruits. So if I call you 10 times and you pick up 3, I know that you may not like to be on the phone, so I may try texting you. If you don't like to text, then I'll maybe start calling mom or dad a little bit more just to kind of offset it, but still on my touch point. So you get to know these kids because of how much time you spend getting to know them, right? So I think that's feel, and that's something as an assistant coach when you're recruiting, you kind of got to understand who you're recruiting and kind of curtail your recruitment kind of to their liking, because if you just constantly just do this and they don't like that, you're going to lose them.
Is there a guy that you've won at Ohio State or you've contributed to winning at Ohio State where you had to maybe do a 180 and say, you know what, this guy doesn't like this approach, I'm going to go with this approach, and you found out maybe an approach and maybe a conversation topic that you've had to change and adjust to? Or is it something that just you can think of a specific situation, or it just changes with every recruit?
No, I think it just changes with every recruit as you get on the phone and start having conversations. And I'll just ask these kids like, hey, you a phone guy? And if they're like, no, I'll be like, all right, let's just text a little bit more. Or, I'll send them some Instagram stuff or some workouts, whatever it be. Like I'll tailor it. One size doesn't fit all, right? So you got to kind of ask the questions and figure it out, and then kind of go that route and tailor it to that specific recruit. So no one is like the other. There's some similar guys that operate different ways, but I can remember Liam McNeely, I called him like 275 straight days in a row. And he liked to be recruited and he liked to be on the phone, and I like to try to check in and see what was going on. And, so you just got to have feel with that and do it accordingly.
What is your favorite part of being a coach in college basketball? I know there's obviously the game, there's practice, there's recruiting, there's scouting, game planning, all the different types of things, and stuff that we don't even see and that a lot of fans wouldn't care about. You've got a meeting at 2 that a lot of fans probably would be like, what does that even mean? So like, take me through, what are some of your favorite things to do as a coach? What do you look forward to the most?
I love spending time with the guys. I remember being a player myself and just how big of an impact a coach had on my life. And, I want to be that for these young guys. Now, a lot of things have changed and there's a lot of different variables, but still at the end of the day, these are young men that are still trying to navigate life, and they're having to navigate it through a whole bunch of other stuff that I never had to. And I feel like they need us now more than ever, because there's so many, you fight for their attention constantly. So if you can, obviously make them a better basketball player and they can help us win, but there's that aspect, but it's also, showing them how to be consistent and be a good student and be a good person. I think there's so much you can do as an assistant coach to impact these young guys. And I think at the end of the day, that's my favorite part. Now, like, I love game days and I love scouting and I love recruiting, but just getting to know these guys, I mean, these are relationships that you'll take with you, forever. For instance, like Luke Goody and Anthony Lee, like they're inviting me to their wedding next summer. So like those are the things that, matter most. But just the relationship building that you get with these guys is the best part for me.
So there's another aspect as of the past 5 years or so, which is NIL. Do you try to advise, consult players on like, hey, like you're making a huge, like a life-changing amount of money by playing here at Indiana or playing here at Ohio State. Here's what I would do. Like, maybe don't go spend all your money on XYZ, maybe save some of it, maybe invest some of it. Like, how do you help with that? Or maybe a better question would be, how does Ohio State support players making this life-changing money?
Yeah, I think, again, like Ohio State, I mean, we have every resource you could ever imagine, right? So they have at their fingertips every resource that they need. So they obviously may come to us and ask us our opinion. I don't try to force my opinion on anyone. I may say, hey, you may want to take a look at doing this, or getting with a financial advisor so you can set some stuff aside. And we'll have those conversations, with their parents if they have questions. But this place specifically, there's so many resources for them to get the help that they may ask for when it comes to the financial aspect, which makes it really, really nice. But yeah, of course, you're going to, have your own life experiences of, trying to help them and do those different types of things. But at the end of the day, they kind of have to, make that decision. You can lead a horse to water, doesn't mean it's going to drink it, but at least they have the information they need to be successful.
Another question on the recruiting side. I get this question a lot from fans, so I'll point it to you because I'm sure there's plenty who are curious about this. What's the difference between an unofficial and an official visit?
So an unofficial visit is basically on the recruit's dime. So they come here, they travel, the travel's on them. They're on campus. We go to lunch, they have to pay for their own lunch. An official visit is like a 48-hour kind of red carpet event where we can cover all expenses. So we can fly them here, we can get them car service from the airport to the hotel, we can put them up in a hotel, we can feed them, we can do a lot of different things with them. So unofficials are more to, I would say, more informational and, just spending time with the staff to kind of get to know us better, looking at the facilities. An official visit is like really kind of peeling back the layers of the player and talking about player development and what it looks like for him to be here at Ohio State.
All right, another question from an insider subscriber. What are your biggest focus areas in recruiting, both in terms of what you look for and then also in terms of your responsibilities? This is a question from Alex, insider subscriber.
Yeah, I'll kind of start with kind of what I first look at. I think first and foremost, I've always been taught to just trust your eyes, right? And what does that mean? That just means when you recruit at this level, like, you should be able to see a guy that's talented enough to be one of the best players in the country. So like, that's the easiest part, is identifying, okay, who is good enough. And I think once you can identify that, then you have to kind of start, what we call is kind of getting underneath the hood and figuring out what type of person they are. Who is around them? Do they have good people around them? What's his work ethic? What are his intangibles? What is his character like? What are his academics like? There's so much background information that we're doing with these guys because they're large investments, right? Kind of like the NBA. And, those guys will really, really pull back the curtain and try to figure out what makes the kid tick. And we're kind of doing that now, almost at a similar level. So I think, you got to have the talent. I love skill. I know Coach Diebler loves skill, being able to shoot the ball, dribble, pass, and shoot, especially with how we play. But then it's like the talent and character kind of, if you have both, right, no brainer. If one's lower than the other, you kind of have to kind of offset that and make those decisions. But character is really big for me, because then that's going to be a good teammate. That's going to be an unselfish player. It's going to be a winner. These are all things that I think are imperative to being a good team. And the team is obviously made of individuals, and making sure that all those guys are kind of all pointing towards the same direction, and that's winning.
Can you think of a moment this year that was just, maybe it's a morning, a night where you're locked in with your coaching staff or you're locked in with your players and you just remember it, like, that was incredibly difficult, but it was worth it? Like, was there anything that sticks out in terms of, man, this night ended up being pivotal for our season?
Yeah, the first thing that comes to mind is we go to Iowa on the road and we get popped. And that was a really big pivotal moment for our program and specifically for the year. And I remember the next game was Purdue at home, and it didn't get any easier. I think like the 5 of the next 6 games were like a gauntlet, and we were coming down the home stretch. And that was a really hard moment because we all kind of had to look ourselves in the mirror and make some adjustments in that moment. And I felt like we really came together as a team. We had a great group of guys that were really, really bought in. We had a great team chemistry on this last year's team. And they never really blinked. Now, credit to Coach Diebler and his messaging and our staff for keeping those guys locked in. But I can remember that next day of practice was like one of our best days, which propelled us to finish the year, better than I'd say 90% of other teams on the bubble. We kind of played ourselves off, right? And a lot of other teams on the bubble kind of played themselves off the other way. And I felt like we did that because of the men in our locker room, and the staff did a phenomenal job of keeping those guys kind of eyes on the prize and just taking it one day at a time and sticking with the process. But that was the one moment for me specifically where we could have went either way, and we went a great way.
So I've got one more question, and then we're going to talk about your playing days for a little bit. I want to know from you, you have been around this team, this year's team for a week or so, like really starting to get after it. What are you seeing from this year's team so far?
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of good players. Our depth is really exciting. Our maturity is exciting. We have guys that have played at the high major level that are experienced, and not only are they experienced, but they're good guys. They're talented, they're high character, they're hardworking, and they care about winning. And those are some of the ingredients that really we really looked at here in the portal and in the off season with the high school recruiting. And again, everybody talks about culture and chemistry, but it's a real thing that you're constantly working on as a staff, 365 days a year. And just the thing that I've noticed with this group is just kind of up and down the roster. You got guys that can play, guys that are competitive, and not only that, like they have multiple years, right? Like can kind of go down the roster and you kind of look at them and they have the ability, to come back. And I think that's, something that's really, really important. We've always started here with retention and keeping the best players. And, again, that's a credit to Coach Diebler and our staff with the relationships that we build, and our guys get better. You just look at their years, year over year, the guys improve, and we treat them really well. And again, like you're at Ohio State. This is a really, really special place that can change your life for a lot of different reasons. And just really excited to kind of get in the weeds here. I think we started last Monday, so this is Monday. So yeah, we've been going about 8 days, 1 week. So things are looking up, right? Ask me that question in week 4 and 5 when everybody gets a little fatigued. I'll have more information, but so far so good, and really excited for this group.
All right, Coach, we're gonna do some trivia for you and your playing days. Let's start with who you started your career or who you set your career high against. This is a pretty simple one. Do you know how many points you scored that was your career high, and which team you played in that game?
Was it Eastern Michigan on the road?
No, it was not.
Okay. No, I don't.
All right, I'll give you a hint. It's not.
It's about 7 or 8 points a game. All that mattered to me was the win. That's all that mattered to me.
And you won a lot. You won a lot, both at Xavier and Akron. You won at both spots consistently. So I'll give you a hint. It was not a Division I school.
Was it John Carroll?
Yes, it was. You know how many points you scored?
18.
Yes, that's right. That's right. All right, let's do another one. How many doubles do you have in your career?
I think just one.
Okay. Which game?
That was Oklahoma State and Puerto Rico.
Yes, sir. What was the final stat line in that one?
14 and 10.
Yes. Let's go. That's good. That's good. I mean, this has been
that was Marcus Smart,
Yeah. I mean, this has been 15 years, and the fact that you can remember these, I consider it impressive. This may be happy, this may be sad. Biggest blowout of your career?
Oh, that's easy. Like that I experienced?
Yes, you played in this game.
Yeah, I played for about 25 seconds, but VCU absolutely ripped us in the NCAA tournament. Half our team had food poisoning, including myself. So
I saw in that game you played like 8 or 9 minutes, I want to say. You didn't play much.
Yeah. The night before we had a meal, because we played in Detroit, and I remember after dinner, like I started texting the group like, I don't feel good. And like we had 3 starters that had food poisoning. I remember walking into the arena with an IV bag attached to my arm, trying to get fluid. So that's how my college career ended, which was not real fun.
Yeah, I was gonna mention your last game of your career. I mean, who knows what happens if you guys are not poisoned by food? What did you eat? Do you know what it was?
It was a typical like chicken and pasta the night before a game, like nothing crazy. Just
okay.
Maybe they left it out. I don't know.
So I will say that actually was not the biggest blowout of your career. It was tied for second. John, yes, VCU was tied for second.
I thought you meant like a game I lost.
It could be a win or a loss. Do you know the win? The biggest blowout of your career was a win.
No, I don't know it.
108-60 against Fordham. That was a margin of victory of 48 points. Fordham.
Wow. Got crushed.
Yeah, that was a good win. Good win for you guys. And then tied for the VCU game was the win over John Carroll, where you also won by 46 points. So of the 3 blowouts, 2 were wins. So that's good. And last question here on your playing days. What's the most steals you had in a game?
No idea, because I had the MAC all-time shot blocker right behind me. His name was Zeke Marshall. So it didn't really matter if I had a steal or not, because they had to go finish at the rim, and that wasn't happening.
Okay. So it's 3. Do you know how many times you did this?
4 times. I don't know.
7, which I was pretty impressed. I said, B. Walsh back in the day. Were you more out in the passing lanes, or were you picking pockets?
I didn't care if they got behind me, because they had a 7-footer. They had to finish at the rim. So I'm actually going to take that stat and make sure Dave Dickerson and the rest of our staff knows that I had 3 steals 7 different times.
You should share. I mean, you could also share the 46-point loss to VCU. It feels like it may not come up in conversation. Yeah, but no, that's fine. All right, Coach. Last question here. We'll get you out of here. What's your message to Buckeye Nation for 2026?
My message is just to come out and support us. I think you're really going to like the group. We got a bunch of guys that are going to play really, really hard, play the right way, play fast, and come out and support us. It's going to be a lot of fun.